Next game we played, Matt, is Salvation Road.
Yes, it's designed by Peter Gousis, Michael D. Kelly, and the art was by Venessa Kelley, his wife, and it was published by Ryder Games.
Now, I want to preface this with the fact that Ryder Games actually gave me a review copy of this. I will be reviewing it for the Dice Tower eventually, once I get a couple more plays in. But I want to thank them for that. And so Salvation Road is essentially it takes place in post-apocalyptic Australia, I believe. And, it's Mad Max themed all over the place, except for, avoiding copyright stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to get supplies to take your group of survivors on the Salvation Road to salvation. And salvation is, I guess, like the civilized place that's left or whatever, and you're trying to get there for safety, etc. Now, to do this, though, you're going to randomly put out it has a big board, but really it's not confined.
Right.
Because it's just places to put things, but they don't really have to be in exact spots. Like all the location cards are like Polaroid camera pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And with a special ability in the bottom white area. And what you do is you shuffle up the areas and you pass them. I think it's one more than the players, maybe. I think there was 5. Yeah.
There was 5 places. Yes.
Yeah. And you put them out. One of them is a location that always has to go out. There's 3 of them that you shuffle, and then you put 4 extras in there if you're playing a 5-player game. So you got 5 locations. And then you put them out on the middle of the board and you don't flip them out until you go there. But, and then you put all the tokens everywhere and stuff like that. At the top is a Salvation Road, which starts with 1 card face down. And those kind of tell you what you might need. You might need fuel or you might need ammo and things like that, but it doesn't tell you exactly how much you need of each. And other than that, each player gets a survivor and a hero. And the hero has a really cool ability, but the survivor has a really bad ability.
Right.
But he does have inventory spaces that you need. It's precious. If both of your guys die, you lose. There's many ways to lose. There's an apocalypse deck or whatever it's called. And it's like labeled after the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And at the end of each round, after all the players have activated their characters, you flip those over, or one of them, and you do some bad things. And if that deck ever runs out, you lose. There's a couple other ways to lose. Or if you go on the Salvation Road trip and you fail it, you lose, obviously. On your turn, you activate one of your characters. They do 2 actions. It's either like move them from your base of operations to one of the location cards and reveal it, or you can search at one of those location cards and put out more goods on top of it, like different medical or food and guns or bullets. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can activate that ability on that card. Most of the locations have an ability that require you to have some sort of payment to do it, like sacrifice hit points or whatever. And you're just trying to run around, search different locations, gather goods, take them back to your compound or whatever it's called, like your main base, and then put them on the truck. And eventually, once you have enough, or if you think you have enough stuff to go on the trip, you start the trip, and then you flip over the road cards one at a time, and you pay what the debt says. It might take 3 food and 1 bullets to get past this card, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then you go on to salvation and you have to pay a toll, and that's you have to pay it depending on the number of players. You flip over the search cards that populate the things that come out on the location cards. You use the same deck, basically. You just shuffle it at this time, and you have to pay one of the 2 resources that's listed. But you flip out a card per player, essentially, or at least in a 4-player game, I think we flipped out 5 of them.
Yeah.
And if you have enough to pay for all of that, you go on to salvation and you win the game. There's a lot more rules I'm probably forgetting, like combat and things like that. Another way you can lose is a lot of these events and stuff will summon marauders or whatever, and they'll come to your main base. And if you get overwhelmed by meaning that all the marauders for that game have been put into play, you lose the game.
Right.
You can fight those. There's dice rolling, not too much, but you kill them and then you roll dice to see if you take wounds, essentially. And there's some other things, but that's essentially the game. It's, what do you think? What do you think about this? First impressions.
I I'll just go ahead and say it. It's very much like Dead of Winter.
I knew it was going to be brought up at some point.
Not saying that's bad, that it is. Because I will say this, if there's things that you don't like about Dead of Winter, maybe they're not in this game. Now it doesn't have the Crossroads deck, but I feel like some of the storytelling is done with the Four Horsemen deck or whatever it is that you got to worry about at the end of each round.
It does have flavor text on them.
Yeah. So you might get your fill from that. Now, if you don't like the trader aspect, that's gone out of this.
Yep, fully cooperative.
So if that's your problem with Dead of Winter, it's gone. If you don't like zombies, it's gone. You don't have zombies.
Different theme.
Yeah, it's different theme. So, I mean, the fact that it's similar, I'm not going to dog on it for that fact, because I do believe theme can be a reason that you might like or dislike a game. But just focusing on this game by itself, the gameplay was fine. I thought the survivors and your heroes or whatever they were called.
Yeah. Like their abilities.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun trying to balance them, and like definitely with the survivors, their little detriments that came with them were usually pretty funny. And
what was your survivor's ability or detriment ability?
Oh, mine was a skateboard guy, and he would always bring a marauder back with him every time he came back home, back to the base or whatever, because he figured no one was following him, but someone always was. So it was always fun to and I think Eric probably had the most detrimental one where he made people have to like take the rest action or whatever. Oh
yeah, so when his survivor moved onto a location, all the other survivors and heroes, like player characters, get delayed, and when you get delayed, you have to put your guy face down to the little standees. You just knock him over, and then you have to waste an action to stand up, basically.
Right, which you have 2 action points, I believe.
Yeah,
on every character.
So I mean, it's like you lose half your turn with each guy.
Right. So we made sure his person didn't go to where we had a lot of guys or something like that. But I mean, as far as like organizing what you're doing and everything, kind of basic, just kind of moving around where you think you need to go. You can only search certain areas so many times, and they have more of a threat ongoing the more times you search it. I guess you're making noise and more marauders are coming. So that's something you got to worry about. But it was an all right game.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna touch back on those characters because I think that's a really cool part of the game. Although I do think there's probably a couple of the heroes that you make it harder if you don't have them. Like the one I had was the medic, and if you spend a healing token, like the normal action of a healing token is you spend it and it cures up to 3 face down wound tokens, or it cures 1 face up wound token.
Yeah.
And face up wound tokens, like all the wound tokens just cover up your inventory spaces. But if you run out of inventory spaces, you die.
Mm-hmm.
The unfortunate thing is some of those wounds, if they become, critical or whatever, some of the event cards or apocalypse cards or whatever they're called, will flip those over. And when they do it, they'll say, everybody who has a wound that's face down must reveal 1 and apply all your face up wounds. Which sucks if you had tons of wounds from before that were face up.
Yep.
Like Jeremy's character, his survivor, anytime he suffered a wound, they go face up.
Right.
He didn't immediately suffer the effect of it, but those event cards would trigger all of them.
And his person was fragile, by the way.
Yeah, that's what it was called, right? Yeah. And so, anyway, you have to spend medical tokens to do that. Now, my character was a healer, and I just spent an action, and it healed a wound face down or face up. And I feel like that was really, really important. I mean, I used that.
It helped a lot.
A lot. Right. She pretty much just stayed in the same spot and just healed people as they came back.
Now that you're saying, I couldn't imagine playing it without her.
Right. If you don't have that and you're having to use those medical supplies to do so, I mean, first off, you need those for your trip to salvation.
Right.
Depending. I mean, you might draw a bunch of road cards and such that you don't need a lot of them. But some games, if you need a ton of them, you can't really use them for the healing.
Right.
And so that would be really bad. But
unless you get really lucky on your dice rolls, which the dice can be pretty ball busting in a sense.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
The odds are in your favor, though, because I think there's way more blank sides. There's a bunch of white dice, and I think maybe 2 of the sides have attacks. Or maybe it's 50-50.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But the black dice are a lot worse because it does have one side that has 2 wound.
But those are used once you get past like five dice or something, I think.
Yeah, like the 5th and 6th dice are black. The first 4 are white.
Right.
And what the reason you're going to be rolling those a lot of times is because at the end of a round, after everybody's moved, if you're on a location, that location has a threat meter. And as that threat meter, as you search at it, that threat meter goes up. And it might go +1, +2, +2, +3. And then it gets to the end. When it gets to the end, it's overran. And you have to put a red X token over top the ability on that. So you can't use the ability on that location anymore. On top of that, you're going to roll a die for every character on that spot plus the threat number. And so when you're rolling 6 dice, that's a ton of wounds, and you have to distribute them amongst the characters on that location.
Right.
So, I mean, you take wounds a lot because every time you search, you have to put out new tokens.
Right.
You got to search, man.
Yeah.
So you got to really play the advantage of the abilities on the locations without maxing out a location and overrunning it. So, I mean, we have one of the locations that allow us to pick up resources from another location. So we max one out and we're like, we're never going there again. Move away, go there and start picking up them remotely. It's like the sewers or something.
Yeah, efficiency is the name of this game.
Very much so. Now, I will say that, you did step on the, let's compare it to Dead of Winter. I like the searching stuff way better in Dead of Winter, specifically because it's a deck of cards and you can find some cool things.
Right.
In this, the search deck is literally the 4 resources or 5 resources.
Yeah.
So there's no cool surprises that come out. Maybe an expansion can add some cool items and things like that in the search deck. Like you flip it over and it's like, you're going to find this special item. But if you're at this location, you find this instead.
Right.
So you can have a little bit of uniqueness for the special items that might appear at certain locations. Otherwise, it's going to be this generic item.
Right.
I thought that would be kind of cool. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it would add a little bit more spice to it.
Yeah,
because and the deck is kind of fairly small. It seems like you run through that same deck a few times in the game.
Yeah. I think we ran through
it up.
We almost got through it a second time, I believe.
Yeah.
Well,
if that's all, I guess that ain't that bad. It seemed like it was more, but
we only shuffled a second time, I think, because we went on the trip to Salvation. You have to shuffle it to have all the cards in there.
Gotcha, to know what to give at the end.
Right. Because then I think it probably has an equal amount of chance to pull up that you need each item or whatever. Right. So, I mean, the ending though is kind of a gamble in a way, because even if those road cards, you have to have 1 per player plus 1. So we needed 5 road cards. Then you go to Salvation and randomly flip over 5 of the search cards and have to pay those. Well, even if you get perfect information, one of the 3 cards that you shuffle into the beginning of the game for locations is always going to have the ability to explore and scout, I believe they're called. Mm-hmm. One of them will allow you to look at the bottom or flip one of those cards over, the road cards. Right. So you permanently know, okay, well, normally it says that we need food and gas, but now we know exactly how many of each that card specifically needs. Like in our game, we needed medical supplies, I believe, and only one of the 5 cards needed it.
Right.
And so I was like, let's just flip it over and see how many we need. Oh, we need 1. Time to burn the rest of those.
Right.
The second ability allows you to put the next road card out. So if you start Salvation and not all 5 road cards out, you just fill them up. Otherwise, you have to put the card out there, and then you have to spend another action to flip them over to see what it does.
But that's really going into it blind.
Yeah. Oh, if you don't do that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you don't have to flip all of them over, but...
No, we were just concerned about the medical one because we were getting a little beat up.
Yeah.
Because it is a weird balancing act that you have to go out, take damage, but you're also trying to, like I said, be efficient, load up as much as you can to be able to bring it back.
Right, exactly.
So...
What do you think about, one thing about co-ops is there's always that alpha gamer who can control and say, we need to do this and this and this. Do you think it's as prevalent in this game?
Alpha gaming can be prevalent in any game if the group allows it.
Agreed.
I think our group is pretty good at, there was some times with Eric, kind of going back and forth on strategies, but I mean, it's we can usually argue each other down. Yeah. To a point. It's not always the same person having the better idea and always coming out. We're following that. Right.
And I think the one thing that combats alpha gaming is randomness. And in this, it's like, well, you shouldn't leave your guy there because what happens if he takes 2 damage?
Right.
Well, what happens if he doesn't? Well, that's true. So we have to kind of decide and come to a conclusion here or some kind of compromise because you don't know what you're going to draw on the searches. You don't know if you're going to take lots of wounds if you stay there. So your guy only has 3 hit points left. Do you stay there and roll 4 dice?
Right.
It's a gamble. Unlike some cooperative games where it's like one person can pretty much play the game because it is a puzzle. This isn't a puzzle.
Mm-mm.
I mean, it's just being efficient, but some of that efficiency comes from randomness. And so you could probably tell people like, all right, statistically, this is a better option, but it doesn't mean that you're right.
Right.
Because, the fate of the dice or the fate of the cards that come out, things like that.
Right.
So the alpha gamer is probably not as much, but it's still there a little bit. It's always going to be in a co-op game.
Oh, yeah.
So I did like that your turns were really quick, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is a fast... It did not feel like we played the game as long as it actually went.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, it didn't.
Yeah, because it's like my turn. Okay, well, this guy's going to move. He's done. Your turn. He moves and searches or whatever. It's just like really quick. With 4 players, we got around the table really fast.
Right.
So, anyway, I pretty much covered all my points. I'm looking forward to playing it again.
I was going to say the same thing. For you to play test it in the future to be able to do your review, I'm looking forward to playing it. So
yeah, and the only thing I'll say about that, it is kind of samey. Like if you played this 10 times, it's not that different. Although there are some variants in the book.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how many more other characters and survivors there were, but
there's quite a bit.
Is there quite a bit? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be fun to see some of those come out then.
Yeah.
And then we'll definitely know if the healer is
broken,
that permanent or
not
broken.
really broken, but necessary.
Yeah, necessary. Yeah. So we'll find out.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's Salvation Road.